Good morning. Glad that you're here. Helps if your Bible's right side up. I want to read some crazy stuff backwards, right? Everything's upside down. I don't know. All right. Glad you're here. Happy Father's Day. We are thankful for you. Um, I wish I could say you're not a dying breed, but unfortunately, we live in a culture that's challenging fatherhood on every level. And so, to you, fathers, we are thankful for you, and you just stand firm as we move through this life, raising our kids and encouraging them to follow the Lord. I want to look. The text we'll be looking at today is in John chapter 8, um, and it's a dual story, and I'm actually only going I'm going to kind of skip the second story uh, and just deal with the father in this particular story. But I put a quote on the slide this morning, and it's going to stay there. I think it's something that needs to soak a little uh, because there's tremendous truth in that. It says, a child is not likely to find a father in God unless he finds something of God in his father. Um, with the culture currently attacking the nucleus family and the challenges that we are facing because of that, I think it's important for us to be engaged, if at all, in the challenges that we are facing, to raise our families, to keep our families together, that they may know the Lord, because ultimately that is where not only our strength lies, but that's who we answer to. And so um, that's part of the challenge. Um, there was a song, and this is going to be the exact opposite almost of 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 the statement. Actually, it's not, but you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. There's a song written in 1974, or it came on the scene in 1974, and by December it was the number one song in the land. Um, it's written by Harry Chapin. Actually, him and his wife wrote the lyrics to this song, and in an interview later, he said it's the one song that scared him to death. Um, and the title of the song, some of you will be familiar. Most of this audience will be familiar. Uh, the title is "Cats in the Cradle," and it was a very powerful song as it laid out a cyclical understanding of fatherhood, at least from this gentleman's perspective. Here's the song. My child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. And he was talking where I knew it. And as he grew, he'd say, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know, I'm going to be like you. The chorus of the song, and the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. My son turned 10 just the other day. He said, thanks for the ball, Dad. Come on, let's play. You can teach me to throw. I said, not today. I got a lot to do. And he said, that's okay. And he walked away, but his smile never dimmed and said, I'm going to be like him. Yeah, you know I'm going to be like him. Well, he came from college just the other day. So much like a man, I just had to say, son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while? He shook his head and said with a smile, what I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later. Can I have them, please? I've long since retired. My son's moved away. I called him just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. He said, I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time. See, my new job's a hassle and the kids got the flu, but it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you. As I hung up the phone, it occurred to me he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. The cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you coming home, son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then, Dad. We're going to have a good time then. Probably one of the harshest realities that we face as fathers is the amount of time that we give our children. It's humbling to read these words and to recognize that those little feet that follow us are going to be like us. And so I come back to our quote: a child is not likely to find a father in God unless he finds something of God in his father. Who are we to our children? It's been said that that fathers are their sons' first heroes and their daughters' first love. There's tremendous weight, tremendous things that must be carried. And I think it's important that as fathers we not buy into the culture that says that we are just a paycheck, that we are idiots, that we are not necessary, because everything of real science says that we are. So we look at chapter 8 of Luke, and we have the story of a father named Jairus, and his daughter is sick. And I would say that probably most fathers, when it comes right down to it, when push comes to shove, when things reach critical mass and there's a difficult situation going on, they respond because it's theirs. It's their child. And if not, then I hope that we can learn something from Jairus to be maybe more like him. So let me pick it up. There's, like I said, there's two stories in the middle in this text. One just kind of happens in the middle, and I'll address it, but it's not today's topic. So starting in verse 40 of Luke chapter 8, it says, "Now when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his daughter, his only daughter, a girl of about 12, dying." Wow. There's a lot there, isn't there? We have this official, this ruler of the synagogue, which means he would have overseen the daily operations at the synagogue, and that was the center of Jewish life. And so there's a lot going on, and really there's not a lot of buy-in on the Jewish side about Jesus anyway. But this is an extreme situation. His only daughter is dying. Think about it. He would have been well known, much respected in the community, and he'd probably seen Jesus at the synagogue in Capernaum. But he's also a dad, and that kicks in here because there would be a lot of pressure. We're not giving the little girl's name, just Jairus' daughter. We don't know anything about her except that she's dying. Wonder what she saw in her dad. Wonder how she viewed him. I think she probably knew he was prominent in the community. depending on her age. If she'd been a little older, she might have thought him old-fashioned and out of date. That's what happens when they get a little older. But when we look at this account, at what we see here with Jairus, we see a father not ashamed to seek Jesus. Verse 41, and there came a man. Notice he didn't come in the dark like Nicodemus. Remember the Pharisee? There was a multitude of people there. His daughter was sick. He came because he needed Jesus. And I don't want to over dramatize that, but I think it's important that become a reality for us as fathers, that we are not ashamed to seek Jesus. He didn't send a servant. He didn't send his wife. He didn't defer that responsibility. He went himself. He stepped out of the crowd and fell at the feet of Jesus. The Hebrew writer would remind us in Hebrews 11, verse 6, that without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Think of the challenges this man is going to face religiously for this outburst of expression towards Jesus. I mean, the climate in Jesus' ministry as it begins is pretty shaky and suspect at best, especially by those who are religious leaders. And here one of them is falling at the feet of Jesus. Now, without being too preachy, our children need to see us seeking Jesus. And that's not just dads, that's all of us. Our children, those younger than us, as we journey this life together, they need to see us seeking Jesus in our own lives. Seeking boldly, without reservation. You know, for years it's not been it's not been hidden that fathers are not as connected. And that's a challenge. All the statistics, whether it's school dropout, teenage pregnancy, drug abuse, all those can be related back to the lack of relationship to fathers. In fact, I was reading last night as I was looking at some different things, and I decided not to pull it in here, except now that I'm here, I feel like I should have. But the 4 leading atheists over the last 200 years, research showed that the key ingredient was a lack of relationship with their fathers. One that we would know, Adolf Hitler, was heavily abused, as was his mother, by his father. Stalin, you pick some of these guys. All of them had father issues. And so for a father to seek Jesus boldly and without reservation is such a rare thing. We also see a father that's not ashamed to bring Jesus to his house. And he says that in verse 41, and began to implore him to come to his house. And so they're headed that way, verse 42, because let's see, let me read a little further. His only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him. Everybody's going. Jairus doesn't care. He wants Jesus to be at his house. Dads, our children need to see us bring Jesus to our home. They need to see that we invite him into our most private place, our house. Not just at worship on Sunday, and if it's really crazy, Wednesday, but home every day. They need to see us in that relationship. Verse 49, we'll pick up the story there. What happens in the meantime is there's a lady with an issue of bleeding, and she kind of disrupts the procession to Jairus' house, and there's this whole little commotion about her. She knows she's been healed, and everybody stops, and you have Jesus going, "Who touched me?" That whole conversation happens from verse 43 to verse 48. And then verse 49, we pick it back up with the story that we started with. And notice here, again, let's read. Verse 49, it says, "While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. 'Your daughter is dead,' he said. 'Don't bother the teacher anymore.' Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, 'Don't be afraid, just believe, and she will be healed.' When he arrived at the house, Jairus, he did not let anyone go in with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. 'Stop wailing,' Jesus said. 'She is not dead, but asleep.' They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand and said, 'My child, get up.' Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. And Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astonished, but he ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened." You see, a father that's not ashamed to trust Jesus. Think of that moment. Maybe you pinned your hopes. Maybe at first, even Jairus had pinned his hopes on just having her healed. That's why he went in the first place. But now she is dead. Jairus, in that moment, I can't imagine the rush of thoughts. He failed. He didn't get Jesus there in time. There was all and we don't have any of that. But as a dad, I know what I would be thinking, and the thing that I would be wrestling with is this utter failure. I didn't save my daughter. And it's interesting because Jesus, I suspect, looking directly at Jairus, tells him rather quickly, "Don't be afraid, just believe, she will be healed." He doesn't say, we don't have in the story, he said, "Oh, never mind. Hey, it was worth a shot. I didn't think much of this anyway. Please." And we only know that because he takes Jesus on to his house. He had been hopeful, just witnessed a miraculous healing. That's what delayed him from getting to his house. And isn't that the way life is? I mean, you see some things that are exciting and there's things going in the right direction, and all of a sudden you get sucker punched, and now you're at a loss. Your faith is reeling, you're on your heels. Life does that to us. One minute we're flying, head up, shoulders back, everything's going our direction, and then we get hit square in the nose with a 2x4 that we were not prepared for, and it takes us to our knees. And the world will tell us, don't bother the teacher. The world will tell us to stop believing. The world will tell us it's over. Makes me think of Job's wife and his friends, to be honest, but he's sitting there having lost everything, scraping the sores on his body, and his wife looks at him and says, "Why don't you curse God and die? Why don't you just give up?" You see, that is what Satan would have us do, believe. In our current culture where we're canceling people and we've got this woke generation or whatever we want to play with these terms, that's the reality of the voice that they're sharing. Give up. But fathers and families, it's not time to give up. It's time to stand up. It's time to put away the nonsense. It's time to reclaim the future for our children. So Jesus tells them not to be afraid any longer. And Jairus didn't give up on the Lord. He gave over to the Lord. Our children need to see us trusting the Lord, especially after we've been hit with the 2x4 and they've been knocked to our knees and we are at a loss and everything says to give up. But look at how this story plays out. Jairus sought Jesus, brought him home, kept faith, and was rewarded for doing so. The little girl lived. Dads, what do you see in your children? What do your children see in you? Are we fathers that are not ashamed to seek the Lord? Are we fathers that are not ashamed to bring Jesus into the house? Are we fathers that are willing to trust and entrust our families to Him? Paul wrote right at the beginning of Romans chapter 1, verse 16, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believes, to the Jew first and also the Greek." Fathers, I want to encourage you to show your children the path to heaven. Because if you don't, quite simply, the alternative is unbearable to think. I want to close with another little story. There was a father and his two kids, and they were swimming off the coast of New York somewhere, and as they were swimming, the father realized they were being pulled out to sea, and the daughter was 8, the brother was 10, and the three of them started getting separated. And he yelled to his daughter. He said, "Mary, I'm going to shore to help, to get help. If you get tired, turn on your back. You could float all day on your back. I'll come back for you." And he and the Little boy made it to shore. There's a frantic search for the little girl. After about 4 hours, they find her out in the middle of the ocean, floating on her back, swimming along, and she was very calm. And she was asked, "Well, are you okay?" "I'm okay." She said, "Daddy said he would come for me and that I could float all day. So I swam and floated because I knew he would come." We have to have, as fathers, that kind of trust in Jesus Christ. We have to believe that he will come. We have to be convicted to the point that we engage our lives. We engage our lives of our family, our household, our daily living with the understanding and expectation of that result. He will be back. And so we face a perilous life with all its challenges with confidence, because those who follow us are needing us to be confident. They're needing us to trust. They're needing us to engage. So, fathers, I've pressed you pretty hard. I've hopefully pressed all of us a little bit. But I do say Happy Father's Day. There are men in this room, although not my fathers, have been a tremendous fatherly influence on my particular life. And I'm thankful for this congregation as we, Monica and I, raise Elena here, and the influence that you have on her. We are in this together to the end. And I want to encourage you as we journey towards home with our Lord. I don't know what day that'll be. But as we journey, and I say this often, we journey this life together. We're all here in Friona together. And as we journey towards home, I want to encourage you, hang on, keep the faith. Encourage others to do likewise, and let's not leave anybody behind. What a blessing it is that we have a hope because we have Jesus. What a blessing it is to have families who believe that Jesus matters in their life. What a glorious reunion we will have when he returns with those who've gone before. So let's keep moving forward. If we can help you in your walk, in your relationship, we are here for that specific purpose. Because none of us are strong all the time. All of us need a little help. All of us need prayers, an occasional hug, whatever your need may be. Maybe it's starting a life with Christ. Let's engage that today. However we can help you, come now as we stand and sing.